You've been listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast. Get ready for the world's greatest Arsenal podcast. Welcome to another podcast by Guns and Yellow Ribbons. Enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Guns and Yellow Ribbons. I'm Fergus, I'm your host. I'm joined by my sidekick, my good friend, Gunnar Hilsey, Trevor. And we're continuing our season throughout the summer of Arsenal community contributors. Last week was Ruth, Beck, and this week we got another artist coming on, and it's Charlie Shanks. Charlie. Charlie, how are you
Charlie,
doing?
we're proud to say that name. While we sing the song, we'll win the game. Sorry, Charlie, I had to get it in.
What an introduction. What an introduction. Thank you both.
How are you doing?
Good, mate. Good, mate. And yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Just finished work. Got myself a nice gold watch, as they're saying in Cockney rhyme. Got myself a nice scotch, and I'm ready to settle down and have a chat about what you do and your links to North and East London, and your links to Arsenal, and like, you know, just what you do and how you've contributed to the community in various different ways and ways and means. Trev, we done one of these last week with Ruth. I've watched it back, and without sounding a bit, blowing smoke up our own backsides, I thought it came across as really nice and a really interesting chat. What did you get out of it last week?
It was just amazing. It was great listening to Ruth. Charlie, you got a lot to live up to, son. I'm sorry, but I'm sure you'll be all right, mate.
No. I've seen Ruth's work. I watched the pod one. Good stuff. Just
before we move on, I've had a few beers tonight, and I'm still on it. I'm on the chain. So anything could happen, but I'm going to say no more than this, right? Other than my great friend, right here, is the most placid, friendly, generous, nicest person I've ever met. And he is a proper friend. He's not a Facebook friend. He's my proper friend. Some people will realise why I'm saying that. Some people don't. It doesn't matter, guys. Let's just enjoy Charlie now. Let's leave that behind and let's enjoy Charlie and his artwork.
So, Charlie, you make us both feel extremely old. Obviously, Trev's 70, 80. He looks good for 80 odd, but I'm in my early 50s. My eldest daughter, I think, is slightly older than you. You're 27. You're Hackney born and bred. So talk to us about Hackney born and bred and your links to Islington then.
So yeah, like I say, Hackney born and bred. Born there, lived there for 24 years until I had my little girl. We moved out to Brentwood, which is where I am now. And the Islington links, I suppose, come through school. I went to a school in Islington, Old Street, and then I also did my sixth form studies. And part of the sixth form studies, I had to go to Highbury Grove once a week to do my art studies.
Your art
which
studies.
I suppose ties in nice with Arsenal and art.
And Trev won't be aware of this because we had a quick chat yesterday because there was connection problems when we done the test a couple of days ago. But you talked to me about, in particular, your art teacher being a Scottish art teacher and how down to earth and genuine he was, and that made you connect and get better at what you did.
Yeah, 100%. He was a Glaswegian, so not everybody. He was a tough Glaswegian. Not everybody took to his style of teaching. I suppose you had to be sort of tough skinned because he would tell you exactly what he thought of your work, be it good, be it bad. And it's funny. I should have sent you a drawing. I remember the first time I met him, he said to everybody, "Right, get a book." Hello, Ruth. Get a book, pick an image, draw it, and then paint it. Yeah. And what I didn't tell you yesterday, and maybe other people don't know, is I can't really see anything out of my left eye. Yeah.
Oh.
So painting and blending colours is quite difficult. Hence why, if you look at my artwork now, you'll see a lot of heavy blocks of colour. Yeah. So anyway, I picked a book. I picked a man's face, and I drew it out in pencil. And it came to the stage where now it had finished, and it was quite a good drawing, to be fair, yeah. And I thought, right, now I've got to paint it, but I was scared, and I was kind of scared of him, yeah. So what I started doing was I started going over my pencil lines to delay basically painting it. And every now and then I could feel him walking sort of past me and having a little look. And all of a sudden he sort of went, Chuck, because he called me Chuck. Chuck, you know you've got to start painting that eventually. And I thought, all right, well, he's twigged. So then I started painting it. And honest to God, it's the most awful painting I think you'll probably ever see of a person in your whole life. And he's turned around to me and he said, you should have just stuck with the pencil, Charlie. So there you go.
So, Fergus, that is straight away. Charlie's got me hanging on, and I'm listening, and generated a question already because I can see Ruth's in the comments, so Ruth's watching and listening. But you see, where you, Charlie, you said you had an art teacher that you got on with, he encouraged you, he liked your style, you liked what he did. Ruth said the opposite. Ruth struggled because her art teacher at school didn't really like the same, or didn't do the same style that she did, and she couldn't get into the art that he wanted her to get into. So it's really interesting what a difference a teacher, not a good or bad teacher, but a teacher that's on the same wavelength that likes what you do can make, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I was saying to Fergus yesterday, art is subjective, isn't it? Yeah, some people might like my art, some people might. Some people might like Ruth's art, some people might not. So it's all subjective. So when we was doing the A-levels with him, everyone sort of thinks because you do art in A-level, they think it's kind of an easy subject, which, you know, on paper it is. You sit there, you paint, you draw, you do whatever. You do textiles, blah, blah, blah. And when I left A-levels, I think I got a B. So I didn't get great grades, really. And because it was so intense and you have to produce such a volume of work in such a short space of time, I didn't really want to do art anymore. I wouldn't say I hated it, but there was a long time after that course where I didn't pick up a pencil, a paintbrush, or anything. And then it wasn't until 3, 4, 5 months later, I sort of sat there and you just think, I miss it. I want to draw again. It's like a bug. So you might have little down periods. I mean, I can't remember the last time I've actually done. I don't know when my last Arsenal drawing was. I think it was the Charlie George one near to the anniversary, which would have been like early May, so a good month. And sometimes you have little lulls, and then you go back to it.
Let's talk about your first Arsenal. Your first Arsenal one was this one. You were still at school. FA Cup winners 2005. Super Patrick Vieira PV4. Talk to us about this. Like the detailing isn't the same as you're detailing now. You're obviously still learning stuff. Talk us through this.
So I would have been about 11 when I did that. But I mean, when you said it's the first one that I was sort of proud of, type thing, in terms of an Arsenal picture. But what I used to do in primary school, and I remember doing it, I hate maths. Maths is my worst subject in the world. Cannot stand it. And I remember I used to sit there and, you know, your little textbook. And in the margin of the textbook, I used to just draw Robert Pires from memory. And it weren't great. It was just a thing. So all my maths books, if I look back now, they're not full of sums. They're full of little doodles of Robert Pires. A, because I love Robert Pires. And B, because he had the goatee and the long hair. Not easy to draw, but it was an easier
distinctive. Yeah.
So that was probably like my first time drawing Arsenal stuff. And then that one. I mean, my two favorite players of all time are Vieira and Bergkamp. And I mean, I guess that just is whatever age you are. I suppose you kind of gravitate towards the players of when you was about 10 years old. I assume that's the same for most people.
Exactly.
So he won the cup. He scored the goal. I sat down for 4 or 5 hours on my mum's kitchen table with a pencil, drawing away, and produced that one, which I was quite pleased with, to be fair, at 11.
Trev?
So Charlie, I mean, your Etsy shop, doesn't do you justice. So Fergus pointed me towards your Instagram, because I thought I'm going to go to his Etsy shop and this is where I'll find most of it. But I went to your Instagram and it knocked me back, mate. Such a cross section of all different things. Arsenal, famous people, not so famous people, you name it. You've sort of drawn it,
Yeah.
So how do you decide what you're going to do next? Do you just see something and think, I'm going to draw that?
Well, do you know what? That I always say, and without sounding like big-headed, but sometimes that can be the hardest part of the process. You sit there and you think, what do I draw? And there's millions of different things you can draw. But sometimes you just have a bit of a block and you think, I don't know. So it can be I don't know. Like I said, with the Charlie George one, it was the 51st anniversary the other day. So it made sense. And I'd never drawn that picture of him laying down on the ground before, which is probably the most iconic one from that era. And I thought, right, well, what can I do to mark that anniversary? And that pops in your head. I mean, I've done a Whitney Houston one the other day, and I mean, I like Whitney, but I'm not her biggest fan. But I just so happened to watch a documentary a couple of days beforehand, and I was like, oh wow, I haven't done one of her. I should get the pens out, find an image, and crack on. So I suppose that's sort of what's happening at the time, I guess.
Listen, this obviously clearly an Arsenal podcast, and we're talking about Arsenal as well as what you do within the community as well. Why Arsenal?
Why Arsenal? That's a fun. The other thing I didn't tell you, Fergus, was actually my dad's a Chelsea fan. So where most people
you can divorce them nowadays, you know that.
Yeah, well, there's a story that he won't agree to. So I would admit that until I was about 4, he bought me all the Chelsea kits. Yeah, so you could say that I was a Chelsea fan up until age 4. So
Fergus cut him off. Fergus, I'm off.
And this is what happened. He will say it didn't, but we was playing. Well, Chelsea were playing Arsenal in a cup game, and I remember the telly was on top of the fridge in the kitchen, and I think we was beating them 3-1. And my dad made a throwaway comment to say, "Oh, I might as well support Arsenal." And me being 4 or 5, whatever I was, I took it literally. Yeah. So I thought, well, if he's going to go and support Arsenal, so will I. And I just stuck with it. And he swears blind, he never said it, but he did.
That very game was the first time I got very drunk watching football. I went to the White Hart on Stoke Newton High Road with a Chelsea fan who was a neighbour when we lived in Hackney, and then we went over towards Green Lanes. And I had about 10 pints, and I couldn't at that day. I was younger then and not as trained as I am now. And 10 pints was like, Jesus, that's like a week's worth of beer for me. And it just done me. Andy Fink's in the chat. Andy Fink was fortunate enough to win one of these on this very podcast, the Saka one, when we had to name various number 7s. I think it was name all the number 7s in there. Go on, Trev, name the number 7s.
No, I'm just looking at Georgie Armstrong. That'll do for me. All the others are after that. That's my 10-year-old hero, Charlie. Like you just said, Charlie George Armstrong, Frank McClintock. Mm-hmm. They're my number 7 heroes. They're my heroes. So I just looked. I love. You've actually got, for someone that never saw him play, and you've gone for pictures. You've actually nailed Armstrong there. You've nailed Armstrong running with a ball there. He was a little man, and he had not a funny way of running, but a different way of running. And you've about nailed that, mate. In fairness, you really have.
Well, I suppose that goes back to one of my favorite accounts on Twitter, which is Jill Armstrong. Yeah. So, like you, one of my uncles is Arsenal, and his hero was Geordie Armstrong. And a few years back, when I saw that Jill was on Twitter, and what a brilliant account. Yeah. And in my opinion, there should be more accounts like Jill's that remember old players, constantly remembering the old players. Yeah. All right. So I'm 27. And like I said, I've never seen him play, but because you see it all the time, I feel connected to Geordie in a way, I suppose.
Yeah. She has some wonderful stories to tell, Jill. I've never met Jill. We speak a lot on social media. Yeah. But I've never met Jill, but she has some wonderful stories to tell about growing up around Highbury, around the old stadium as kids, with her dad. And I could listen to her all day. And you're right, Charlie. I wish there were more accounts like it. Yeah. I wish there were more accounts like it. Charlie, Fergus, I went back. Sorry, Charlie. I'm sorry, Charlie. I was going to change it. You go on, Charlie. What was you going to say, mate?
No, I was just going to say we've got such a vast history, so many great players of the past, and like I met Charlie George not long ago. Well, I say not long ago, a couple of years back, and he was in a club shop, and I mean, right. So I like history. Not everybody likes history, but two things I love is history and Arsenal. Yeah, so they kind of intertwine. And I see him in the distance, Charlie George, and I thought, wow, that's Charlie George. I couldn't believe it. He was only standing there. Yeah. But then I sort of thought nobody was around him. You know, nobody was going up to him asking for autographs, and I thought, what? Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And I suppose maybe even me thinking about my own band of mates from school or whatever who are Arsenal fans, if I said to them like, you know who Charlie George is, they might know who he is, but they might not be able to pick him out in a photograph or anything. And I would love for it to be more celebrated, I suppose, our history.
He's an amazing man, Charlie. If you get a chance, go on the Legends tour with Charlie George. He's brilliant. Well, you'll know them, mate. You'll know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But strangely enough, Charlie's often around the shop because he does a Legend tour and you see him in the shop. And last time I was in London, he was just walking out the shop and I just shouted, "Oi, Charlie, don't you disappear without me letting me having a picture with you, son." And he looked at me, had a laugh, come over, had a cuddle, and we had a picture taken. You know, he's that kind of man, Charlie. He's a lovely, lovely man. As are most of those old players, you know.
Yeah.
They were a lot more connected with the football club because, you know, when they went into the stadium at Highbury, they had to go through the entrance doors, the Marble Hall. Everyone was there. Everyone saw them. When they were training, you could see them coming out. They drunk in the local pubs. Whereas nowadays, these modern players, and I'm not saying it's wrong, I suppose it's the modern world we live in, they're detached from the fans, aren't they? You don't see them. They drive under the car park. They don't drink locally in the pubs, or they don't drink at all. So it is different. Right, I better let Ferguson now because he'll moan at me, Charlie.
Charlie, you go to games. Obviously, you got a 3-year-old now, so it's harder to get to games. But what was your first game that you remember going to?
My first ever game was a pre-season friendly against Leyton Orient, which was way back in maybe, I don't know, 98, 99, 2000. And I actually saw David Platt outside the ground, and he signed my program, which was nice. Not that I actually probably didn't know who he was at the time, to be honest. My dad spotted him. But my first game over Highbury, it was a Carling Cup game against Sunderland. And we was 2-0 up at half-time and we got beat 3-2.
Oh, wow.
But I will never, ever forget. And it's quite sad, really, that we're not there anymore. I loved Highbury. But, you know, as you walked through the you know, like where the steps were to your seats, and then it just opened up. It was like almost like a TARDIS. You thought, like, you're walking through this skinny little doorway almost. And then and I sort of remember standing there as a kid and you could smell the grass and you see the away fans over there in the clock end and it's the ground starting to fill up and boys are training on the pitch. And I will never ever forget.
As many will know who watch this podcast, I was a late comer to football. I didn't move into North London until the late 90s, early 90s. And my first trip to the North Bank, I'd been to Arsenal a few times beforehand, but the first trip to the North Bank was walking out onto the North Bank. And as you say, you come out that little aperture and you just see this green baize, the hit of the grass, the smell of the onions, the smell of the beer, cigarettes as well at the time. And so it's just, it's that sort of thing. And I do remember my first time traveling via tube and coming out of the Arsenal tube station and smelling the onions as you come out. So it's all that sort of stuff that football evokes and the emotions and stuff like that.
But I never get your way around the horse manure on the floor of Avenel Road and that.
Yeah.
And if, like, you've been embraced by the Arsenal fans, do you sell much of what you do? Like, are you selling lots?
I mean, not lots. Like I say, it's just a hobby, really.
Yep.
It's not like I never started drawing to make money. So, like, every like, retweet, comment, every purchase, whether it's a print for 12 quid, whether it's somebody who's asked me to do a particular original drawing for like 40 quid or whatever it is, I appreciate everything. It's lovely. And one of the things, like, there's a guy in America that buys some of my work. And sometimes I think, wow. something that I'd done upstairs here, or maybe it's an older work that I sat on my mum and dad's kitchen table drawing as a 18, 19, 20-year-old or whatever, and that's now on someone's wall in America. That's unreal to think that. And that always blows my mind. I don't know why, but
Charlie, that's stuff to be proud of, son.
Yeah, no,
that is stuff to be really proud of. And listen, don't let anybody ever say differently.
No.
You know what kind of people live on this planet and on social media, mate. You keep doing what you're doing and be proud of what you're doing. Wonderful. I didn't realise you'd gone that far, mate. Amazing.
Yeah,
and to be honest, to anybody who does any sort of art, good, bad, or indifferent, as you said very early on, it's very subjective. Yeah. I mightn't like. I said to you last night that some of yours, they're not my cup of tea, but some of them I think are fantastic. Some of Ruth's stuff I really, really love. But we mentioned Ruth. Who else like artists and contributors do you like? If you look at like in the Arsenal sort of sphere that you know,
yeah. I may miss some out, and if I do, I apologise. But you've got Scene Sketches, you've got Carl Bork, you've got Gunner Balls, you've got a guy called Andy Gilmore as well. He's really good. We're quite lucky, really, as a fan base, I guess, to have so many different artists, creatives, whatever you want to call us. I mean, I love Eddie Longbridge as well. I mean, I think it's hilarious, some of the stuff he draws. They're all tongue in cheek, poorly drawn Arsenal. Things like that, and again, they're so different. Even them few that I just named there, you've got a wide array of different talents there, and they. I mean, look, you could get a picture of Highbury, say the East Stand facade, and you could give them to 10 different Arsenal artists, and you'd get 10 different things.
I'll tell you what, isn't that a good idea? I might start collecting that very picture there. So I know it looks different with Ruth. If Donna, my wife, is listening, I'm sorry, sweetheart. There is room for them all. But that's really interesting. I've never looked at it like that before. Definitely, yeah. That's just one picture, but different styles. And all those people you just named, Charlie, all those people you just named. If any of them are watching now or listen back to this or look at this, I know we've asked some of you to come on this series, and some of you haven't. And for those of you who haven't, we're not in any way getting against you. We just got some names and we invited them onto the podcast. If any of you would like to come on and talk to Fergus and myself, message Fergus. I'm sure that he would be very receptive of any offers. But you've got to draw that picture that Charlie just mentioned of the entrance to the Marble Halls, because that's really interesting.
That's it.
So yeah, we have. You mentioned that we've got a few more coming on. North Banksy's coming up. Sienna is coming up. Also, what's that?
I told you I'd forget someone in that list. I didn't list North Banksy. North Banksy. Sorry.
We got Sene or Sen Sene. So if I pronounce your name wrong, I apologise. We're also hopefully going to get, because it's not just about art, it's about contributors. So we're going to get Jack from the Ashburton Army and talking about how they contribute to the atmosphere and so on. Now, you've done this picture with this wonderful Irish captain, a man that my eldest brother met in Dublin Airport in 1978 and then subsequently cut off the top of his finger and ended up going in an ambulance and left me and my mum and my other brother, I think it was at that point, in Dublin Airport, and going, what the hell's happening? Liam Chippy Brady. You met him. He's seen your art. You've done stuff for the Willow Foundation. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so it was a few years back. Bob Wilson's Willow Foundation. So it's a charity he set up in memory of his daughter, who sadly passed early from a form of, I think it was leukemia. Anyway, so every year they or I don't think they do it anymore, but they've done an initiative called Stars on Canvas, where they just reached out to artists and they asked them to paint anything you wanted. It was. So I picked Arsene Wenger, and I've done a portrait of him on this canvas that they sent. I sent it back to them, and Bob Wilson, with his connections, the original Mr. Arsenal, Bob Wilson, got Mr. Wenger to sign the canvas, and they auctioned it off for their charity. And I think it raised somewhere in between 300 quid or 350 quid or whatever it was.
No, really,
Yeah.
Charlie.
Yeah,
That's amazing, mate.
yeah. And what they do is they
go
so if you've got a terminal illness, they use that money to send you on a day out and give you some kind of experience, like a really nice one, obviously, before you sadly pass away. But yeah, I'm honoured.
Ferg, that's amazing, Charlie. That's amazing, because even at a charity auction, right, where people are parting with their money freely because they want to support the cause, they won't pay 300 to 400 or 500 quid for a picture. They won't do it unless it's worth looking at and it's worth having, mate. So once again, Charlie, be proud of yourself, son.
I was well proud of that one. Yeah. And
good.
I've been lucky over the years to have legends sign my work, and that's always, I get a real buzz out of that. I love it. To think that I've sat there on my mum's kitchen table or around here, done a picture of a legend, and then they've got it in their hand and they're taking a photo of it, or they've signed it, or I mean, Tony Adams has got one of my pieces in his office. So I mean, yeah, just unreal. Charlie George owns 2 pieces of my work, and he told me he took them home, whether he did or not. But that's what he said to me anyway. So I'm going to take it and run with it.
Absolutely.
And I take it this is the photo here with Wenger's holding that was done at the auction. And looking at some of the other people who have your art, you've got one here, as I said, we showed already, Liam Brady, and an Invincible who was on TalkSport today. Great work, Charlie. Thank you very much. And that's from Gilberto. Unfortunately, people in audio, you need to go on YouTube and have a look at this, because some of the artwork's good. If you can't go on there, check out Charlie's Instagram, and his Instagram is at Charlie Shanks Art. And if you want to buy some of the stuff, he has got an Etsy channel. I'll pop it up now, which is etsy.com UK shop, Charlie Shanks Art.
Etsy.
Listen,
I was going to say it.
If I pronounce it right, you think it was an imposter anyway. So, but as Trev said earlier on, most of your art's on your Instagram. DM you on your Instagram, and I'm sure they can sort stuff out.
I suppose Instagram's an easier way to look at it. So it's kind of like a gallery. You go on there and it's just all there. So if you wanted to view in great numbers, then Instagram is the one probably.
And so all that stuff you've got on Instagram, that's for sale, is it, Charlie? If someone messages you, you can do them a print of that, can you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, lovely.
Absolutely.
Andy Fink says you're missing the painting of Ferg and Trev.
No, well, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Hey, as long as he's got his wallet in his hand with some money, that's a rare thing. I'll try and get a photo one day.
If someone does a painting of Fergus and myself, can you please title it "Pure and Simple"? I'm pure and Fergus is simple.
That's the one.
That's the one.
That's the one.
If you were to look outside, since we're talking art, if you were to look outside art, is there a type of art that you like? Is it modern art? Do you like watercolors? Do you like oil? Is there a certain period and stuff like that? God, geez, this is a football podcast. It's very highbrow, don't you think? We'll be on Radio 4.
Well, this is it. I mean, if you're talking like just art in general, like I said earlier, I love history. So my favourite period is the Renaissance. And my favourite artist of all time is Leonardo da Vinci. I could look at his paintings forever. And people, again, like I said earlier, art is subjective. My favourite painting in the world is the Mona Lisa. It's a bit cliche. People go to Paris, they look at it, they think, what's that tiny little painting that's behind a bulletproof sheet of glass? Why does everyone go mad about it? Now, I hate packed places. I don't get on packed buses or anything. The only place that I like where there's loads of people is a football ground. Yeah. But we went to the Louvre 10 years ago. And that room with the Mona Lisa was absolutely mobbed. But I didn't care because I was going to see the Mona Lisa in person. And it just blew me away. But like I say, I'll probably bore everybody with the Renaissance and the Mona Lisa and whatever else, because I know everybody's a fan.
It's not boring, Charlie, because we're here to talk about you, mate. So it's not boring. And if seeing the Mona Lisa and like in the Renaissance period, it means it goes over my head if I'm honest. But if that's what you like and that's what drives you to produce the good work you do, then it's not boring. It's what you do, mate, and that's what we want to know. So anyway, what's next, Charlie? What's your next drawing?
Next drawing. Well,
what are you going to get up tomorrow morning and do?
Well, do you know what one I've been wanting to try and attempt to do for a long, long time because I loved him as a with Chev's face on that one. TFC.
I'm not commenting. I'm going on mute for 5 minutes.
I'll put that on the facade of the East Stand, just above the cannon there.
Yeah.
No, but the Podolski one where he's in the crowd. I can't. I'm not going to swear, but SHL as we call it. When he's celebrating. Yeah. I don't know, did he score or was he just celebrating the win? I've always loved that photo. It's quite because I've got a lot of time for Podolski. I know he didn't play a lot of games for us, but he seems like he's a gooner when you look through his social media and that. He's one of the ones always supporting us.
How about trying that one?
Ramsdale. Well, I did one of Ramsdale's save against Leicester earlier in the season.
What?
I've done that. Yeah, I've done one of that, and that was quite well received.
That's such a peculiar shape, isn't it? Like
yeah.
It doesn't look natural, does it?
No. The body shouldn't bend like that. I don't think. But
no, fair play.
Thank God it did.
Yeah, thank God. And I was there as well, which made it even better. And because I was driving, I wasn't going down and getting drinks at half time. So I actually got to see it because it was on the 46 minute or something like that. So what would you say if you were to pick a painting that you... Look, talk us through this one, actually. So we've got George Graham, Sir Herbert Chapman, and Arsene Wenger. What inspired you? Well, what inspiration do you need? But talk us through this painting.
Well, I mean, they are the three most successful managers that we've had at the football club. So, they say 3 is the magic number. I mean, I could have painted Tom Whitaker with them. I could have painted Bertie Mee with them. But if you're picking 3, I guess if you asked 100 Arsenal fans, I would assume that 85, 90 would turn around and say Chapman, Graham, and Wenger are the best 3. Now, put Chapman in the middle because, all right, he didn't form Arsenal Football Club. Arsenal Football Club was there before Herbert Chapman, obviously. But he made us into the great superpower that we are today. And it's, I believe, without him, I don't know if we would have become that. So he's in the forefront and then winged by the other 2, who, in their own right, were brilliant managers.
And you did last summer watch our history season, and we talked about Chapman, and we went on about Graham and Wenger, and they all had their separate ones. And you are right; he set the foundation. Yeah, there was lots of stuff going on before then, but he took us from the level of being a football club to being a super club.
Yeah,
and gave us our identity of. Give us our identity of the Arsenal and Arsenal, even dropping to make sure we were top of the table at the start of the season. Silly thing, but it works each time.
I think it was like Dennis Hillwood said if he wasn't a football manager, he would have made a great prime minister. That's how highly regarded that man was. And I love Herbert Chapman. I love talking about Herbert Chapman.
He passed away too young.
Yes,
he still had a lot more to give, and I think, honestly, only my view, people will disagree, but Herbert Chapman was the saviour of Arsenal Football Club.
Definitely, yes.
At the period when Chapman came in, lots of people were thinking about doing lots of other things with Arsenal Football Club, mergers with other sides in London, building different stadiums. So Herbert Chapman was and when you learn, we're not going to talk about Chapman for long because you say about Chapman, this is about you, Charlie.
Oh, no, I can talk about Chapman all day.
Some of the stuff that, Herbert Chapman bought in the striped socks, I believe, because when players are looking down at a football, all the players are wearing the same socks. He wanted Arsenal players to stand out. So when a player's looking down, he knows just by his legs if his mate next to him is an Arsenal player or a defender, And we could go on about it, but it's an amazing part of our history.
And you think
Absolutely.
To come from Huddersfield at that time, who was super successful, to come from this, I don't know, it's like the equivalent of going from Liverpool today to, I don't know, just a middling Premier League side.
Yeah, like leaving Man City and going to Fulham. Yeah,
Liverpool,
yeah, so,
yeah. That's it.
Another leader, another inspiring man for his age. When he was 17, when he made first team football and became an outstanding captain, Tony Adams. Where is this painting situated? What game is this one?
I'm not sure what game that is, but I just like the pose, and I like that you see the lip, the kind of he means it. There's something in that bit of grit.
Yeah.
Sort of sums him up. Captain, leader, brave, greatest captain of all time in my opinion. But again, it's all opinions, isn't it? And a lovely man. I've met him twice, and one of them was in the club shop, and he looked at me and he said, because I'd met him before this, and he said to me, "Charlie, are these drawings in the club shop yet?" And I just laughed. I said, "No, you know." And then he called over the I don't know what she was, director of the shop, or she ran the commercial side of things or whatever. And he said, "Hey, you should get these drawings in the shop and sell them." And she was like, "Yeah." And I never heard from her again, but I'll never forget that. And I thought, wow, Tony Adams.
You should follow it up though, if you, with an opportunity like that. If you've got a way to get in touch with him.
I never got a reply. But...
Oh, okay. Well, fair play for that. Fair play to that.
Yeah, but he did that, you know.
Another outstanding footballer, probably who I'd rate as my favourite footballer for Arsenal Football Club in the time that I watched it, is Dennis Bergkamp. I put Henry in a very close second, but the hand of frog, it goes to Bergkamp because of the hand of frog. I like this one. I like the flick, the way he'd flick a boot, but he just flicks off Spurs instead. So it's a chicken on a ball.
Yes.
More modern footballers that you are painting at the moment. The young one that everyone's question actually, if he's going to stay or if he's going to go, but I think it's probably more agent talk, is young Saka. What an outstanding couple of seasons he's had. What do you make of Saka and what do you make of his talent, his future? Do you see his future long term with the club?
Well, I should never go into scouting because I watched him very, very early on against Karabakh at the ground in a Europa League game under Emery, and I was like, I don't know. You know, he kind of runs to the byline, and then he sort of reminded me a little bit of Iwobi, and I wasn't Iwobi's biggest fan. And how stupid do I look now? If you'd interviewed me 3 years ago, Christ, I'd be getting pelters. But no, just fantastic. I was listening to something earlier on, and they said, 20-year-old Bukayo Saka, you just have to sort of remind yourself that he's 20.
Yes.
20.
Yeah.
That's just unreal. I
The
mean,
best is
I've
to
done
come.
some of these drawings that you've shown. I've done 10 years ago. He would have been 10.
Yes,
and now,
exactly.
Now he's one of the main men for the third biggest club in the country.
Well, a few months ago, I had a lay up in hospital, and I watched a few different documentaries that were on Amazon Prime, and the one I watched was the Rooney documentary. Never a huge fan of Rooney himself, but I saw when he signed for Man United his professional career, he was 18. He looked a kid. Yet again, I remember Rooney at that time was like the biggest, hugest thing going, and he's 2 years younger than Saka, and Saka is up there. So yeah, it's just. When we look back and mind blown at the age these kids are. Listen, before we finish up, I wanted to know what your favourite painting was. And Trevor, I'm going to show you what. You tell me what your favourite painting is, and then I'll ask Trevor what he thinks.
I suppose there's probably loads that. So when you say there's some that. You want to draw somebody and you try and every artist will relate to this. What you see on social media is the finished product, is something that we're proud of, yeah? But what you don't see is the 5 or 6 before that we've screwed up in anger, thrown out of a window, thrown our paintbrush at a wall and just had a mental breakdown, yeah? So it's always satisfying when there's maybe a face that you can't draw and then all of a sudden you nail it. Yeah, that's satisfying.
Before you name who it is, your painting style, your method, like a lot of people now use tablets and computerized
Yeah.
stuff. Do you use my wife uses acrylics, she uses watercolors and stuff like that. And when you were talking about the Mona Lisa and talking about Renaissance art, I was thinking for her birthday, I went with her to the National Gallery in London, and it was like another one of Jesus. Another one of a crucifixion. But they're absolutely stunning. But it's just for me because I don't appreciate it like you would or she did. And again, the subjective thing. I just found like, oh Christ, can we move on? But what do you use? Do you use pens, pencils, laptops? What do you use?
So I can't do digital art. I'm absolutely useless. I can't build things as my missus will tell you. I can't even build an IKEA flat pack. But anything on
You weren't
paper
successful yesterday, then, no?
Well, no. Like I said, you know, we're not allowed to swear on this podcast, so I won't. But you can imagine the kind of words that was coming out of my mouth building a new bed. But yeah, I go through phases. So sometimes you might go through a phase where you're using pencils all the time, just because you get the feel for it. I mean, I haven't painted anything in acrylic. Sometimes I use acrylic paints for the backgrounds and stuff, but I haven't actually painted a portrait in acrylics for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. Not because of any great reason, just because you go through little cycles of things you enjoy doing. So at the minute, I enjoy doing a lot of stuff in pen. And I always had a thing when I was younger. You kind of see it in the Vieira picture that you showed earlier. You know, the dark spots. It used to really bug me that I could never get black. Yeah, even with a black pencil, achieving black was so difficult. So, of course, with these paint pens now, achieving that nice, smooth carbon black where you can't see any lines or anything, I absolutely adore it. And so that's what I've been using now, really, is pens and a thing called paint pens, just because they're easier to hold. So it is paint, but they're in pen form, and yeah, you get a bit more control over what you're doing. Be a little bit more intricate, I suppose.
So let's name that painting then.
Le Prof. Yeah,
I do like this. It's got the glint in his eye. It's got that little yeah, the smirk. I didn't see it. And then it's the background, because we all gone Le Prof and stuff like that. You've got all those equations, all that chemistry stuff going on in the background. I think it just sums up, makes him the teacher, the professor, and everything else. Trevor, what's your thoughts on this one?
Oh, I love the look on his face. He's just beaten Ferguson there, and he's just seen the pizza land on Ferguson there. You know, well, he hasn't. Do you know what? He's seen the pizza land on Ferguson, but he said, "I never saw anything."
That's it. And he's clever enough. He's got all that stuff going on in his brain.
Yeah,
doesn't care.
Yeah, my favourite I've seen yours. Ferguson's going to get the right ump with me now, right, Charlie, because he won't have this lined up, right? But my favourite of yours that I've seen so far is, I love the one you did of Alex James. I've only ever seen pictures of Alex James. With the centre part in.
Yeah.
From the 30s, I think it was 20s and 30s. Alex James played for the Arsenal. Yeah. I've seen pictures of him. I've got loads of pictures of him in my collection, and you just nailed him. Absolutely nailed him. I love it. I love the old stuff.
It's funny when I was just saying that sometimes there's people, no matter how much you draw them, you just can't catch them. And he was one of those for me before that painting. There's loads of pictures. I know it's going to sound terrible, but he always looks quite miserable. If you look at a photo of Alex James, he's sort of standing there and he's got a sort of a in his face. And it bugged me for years and years because, like you said, one of the greatest players in our history. People go, baggy shorts. People go on like, you know, they call him the Burkamp of the 30s type thing. And when I finally done that one that you were talking about there, yeah, I was well happy with myself. I must admit. That was a nice.
You should have warned me you were going to do that. Like, at least get Instagram. Let me. You talk for a minute. I'll get Instagram and try and get that one up then, Trev.
I love it. I love it, Charlie.
Another one is Tom Whitaker. I absolutely love Tom Whitaker. Another one who really isn't spoken about enough. Like, you know.
Yeah.
What a man.
Yeah. I mean, when Chapman passed away, there was some big. I mean, obviously Chapman left an amazing setup, But as we saw with managers that followed, it's hard to follow someone like that. And it was continued when Chapman passed away. It continued to be the greatest club in the land. So, Charlie, you remind me a lot of me, mate. Apart from you ain't got my good looks, of course, mate. But you can't have everything. You don't get to many games recently because you've got young kids. Exactly what happened to me for many years. Are you going to get to many next season, mate? Any plans?
I hope so. I love it. Some people love going out and drinking beer. Some people love smoking. Some people do drugs, unfortunately. Some people go concerts. My drug, I always say, is going football. No better feeling in the world than standing there with 57,000 other people who, most of them, you haven't got a clue who they are. But for 90 minutes, they're your best friend.
You're going to cuddle them if we score, you know what I mean? And
I never forget the game. Do you remember the game when Bentner came on against Tottenham, straight from the substitute and banged in the head? Yeah. I was down. I was in front of the goal when some bloke spilled all his coffee down me, celebrating. And normally you'd be like, "Mate, what are you doing?" I just looked. I went, "Who cares?" Because we scored against them. And, the other one was, I don't know if you remember when we first moved to the Emirates, Man United at home, and they won the league that year. And Henry scored the header in the last minute, 94th minute. I can still see him now, rose like a salmon and bang one in against Van der Sar. And I was so looking forward to going to school that week, but I couldn't because my voice had just completely gone. I celebrated it so much, and the singing afterwards and everything, I could not speak. And my mum wouldn't let me go to school, but I wanted to go in to wind the Man United supporters up. Because at that time, they all had their chests out. They was winning the league and this, that, and the other. But damn them, and
I'm struggling to find this one. Carry on.
Growing up in Hackney, then.
Red background.
Hang on,
red background.
Red background.
Growing up in Hackney,
yes,
Charlie. Like, I know you went to school in Islington, but growing up in Hackney, was it mainly Arsenal fans, West Ham fans, Tottenham fans, a mixture of?
Yeah, I mean, when you go places, like sometimes people go, "Oh, you was born in Hackney, that's East London, you should support West Ham." And I used to look at me, "What are you talking about?" West Ham, Upton Park was an absolute mission to get to. Jump on a district line and get off in there. I used to get the 236 up. It was like the closest big football ground to I mean, you could argue Leyton Orient, and I do go to Leyton Orient occasionally. I got a little soft spot for the O's. But 236 up to Highbury, bang, you're there. Job done.
Yeah.
And I suppose growing up, there was a mix of Man United, not so many Tottenham, but for some reason they've all come out of the woodwork last couple of years. I don't know how that quite happened, but
I wonder why. Yeah. I wonder why.
Yeah. But there wasn't that many when I was growing up. No way. You rarely saw a Spurs shirt. But it was easy going up there. Loved it. I remember going to a Highbury Stadium tour when I was about 7 or 8. And that's how sort of nuts I was about football. I still am, but I couldn't go around the whole thing because I was so overcome with excitement. I felt sick, and I was actually sick outside of the East Stand along the curb line there because I was just so excited. So they had to rebook me in for another one. Luckily they did, but yeah, loved it.
Bloody hell.
I'll tell you what, I can't find the one that. I can't find the one you're talking about. But I've just seen that one, Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka, childhood for me.
That's it. So that's a painting. That's an acrylic painting. So completely different to the kind of stuff I do now.
Yeah, no, I do like that. I do like that. Sorry, go on, Trev.
If you go on Charlie's Instagram, the photos are 3 wide. Yeah. 13 rows down, the middle photo. There's a big clue. It says James right across the top of it.
Christ, okay, let me go back up to the top. I'm about 15 rows up.
13 rows down, and
right, you carry on talking, I'll find it.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I was going to say just now was you mentioned Ruth earlier. Yeah, and some of the ones I'm proudest of, I suppose, is the outside of the ground, because obviously my main thing is portraits and stuff like that. To sit there, and I've seen Ruth's work. To sit there and draw that many bricks and that many straight lines of windows and whatever else, I do not know how she does it. I mean, I've done a painting once. It took me 10 hours. I could not sit through and do all those bricks though. So props to her.
I said exactly the same to her, mate. Exactly the same to her. How do you do it?
No, she must have the patience of a saint.
Yeah,
I found it.
there he is.
I found it.
That is Alex James.
Yes.
That is Alex James. That is perfect.
So what era is that from then, guys?
1930s.
30s.
He might have joined in the 20s, but definitely like his main. Well, he was the captain of the our second FA Cup win. He was captain, Alex James.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Funnily enough, Ruth put our child home in Balfour Road, I think it is. I went to my brother's on Saturday and actually drove past, and I was looking out for the house the other day. So I thought that was really good. Listen, before we close, we could just chat for hours. It's just like a casual chit chat. Thoughts on last season? Thoughts on this man in particular? Mikel Arteta, Super Mick, or the trainee, the rookie, whatever. People have different opinions, but what's your thoughts on Mikel Arteta first? What's your thoughts on last season, and then your expectations for next season? You can split them into 3 years. Talk generally.
Well, I'll go straight away. I like Arteta. I've got a lot of time for Arteta. Like I said to you yesterday, I always feel like it's on a knife edge with Arteta in terms of the fan base as a whole. So we could win 10, 15 games in a row, lose the next 3. And if you look at Twitter, all of a sudden Arteta's like the worst manager that ever lived type thing. Yeah. And I always said when he came, we've got to accept that he's a rookie. Whether we agreed with the appointment or not, he is a rookie and he needs time. He's learning. Yeah. And it's funny, we were talking about the 71 side earlier. And before Bertie Mee came along, we had a manager called Billy Wright. Yeah, great player for Wolverhampton Wanderers and England. Yeah. Now, a lot of people don't credit Billy Wright enough with bringing that 71 squad together. He moulded a lot of it. He brought through a load of those youngsters, signed quite a few of the players. And I've often wondered with Arteta, will he be a Bertie Mee or will he be the Billy Wright? Will he be the guy that because I've always said, I think whenever Arteta leaves, whether it be a year's time, 3 years' time, he would have left us in a much better position, squad-wise, club-wise, than what he found us in.
Yep.
But I'm not 1,000,000% sure on whether, like I say, he's going to be the Bertie Mee who's going to win us the league, or is he going to be the guy that sets the foundation in for the next great side that is then taken on by a different manager to then go that next step and win something massive. So that's
great analogy. Great analogy. I believe the same as you, that I think he will do fundamentally good for our club. I don't know if he's going to win us. Okay, he has won us a trophy, but I don't know if he's going to bring us to that level that we ultimately want to get to, Champions League and Premier League titles. But I do think we're going in the right direction. What was your thought? What was your thoughts on last season then?
It was a strange season. I mean, look, we've got the youngest squad in the league, haven't we? Yeah, so it was always going to be an up and down in terms of results. There's a few results in there that I look at and I could scream. The Everton away, that always bugs me. How the hell we lost to them? Just even Burnley at home, we drew 0-0. So there's games in there that you could tear your hair out as a fan. But overall, I suppose my takeaway from it is that for a big chunk of the season, we punched above our weight a little bit and we overachieved, and then we fell at the last hurdle. So you could look at it one of two ways. You could be really, really proud, or you could be really, really sad that we didn't quite do it at the end. I like to look at it and say, yeah, no, I'm proud of the guys. And the other thing is I don't know about you guys, but say like the last 10 years, we've had squads and teams where I've always supported them. They're my side. But some of the players that I never really took to, love this squad. I love them. Even when we lose, I find it hard to really be that wound up by individuals because I like him. He's built a likable side. You've got your Ben Whites and your Sakas and your whoever, even Lacazette. I mean, he just left, but I like Lacazette as as a bloke. They all seem like they want to be there. They want to play. They want to give their all for Arsenal Football Club, and that's really what we can ask for, isn't it?
We know they're multi-millionaire footballers and they'll chase the pound and everything else, but it almost feels like they're one of us out there kicking the ball around, and I do get that sort of feeling.
Yeah,
expectations for next.
Well, when Trent said about that, like the players nowadays are far removed. I feel like this squad they'll never be like the 71 side or whatever, but they are sort of that bond
as close as you can get.
Yeah. But expectations for next season, I suppose it's difficult at this stage, isn't it? Because we need reinforcements. It all depends on kind of who we get in. And the other thing now is there's so many clubs that have so much money that you compete. So like when did we last win the league? 2004. You could turn around and go then that there were really only 3 teams that were going to win the league that season that had a chance. Us, Manchester United, obviously, and Chelsea had just been given that Roman Abramovich money. Now, there's so many teams competing for those top 6, 7, 8 places. It's tough. It is tough.
And they're getting more teams every season.
That's it. I mean, look at Newcastle now. Newcastle have got a load of money to go and splash.
Given 3 years, they'll be challenging for the title as well. So
this is it. But then they haven't. None of them have got what we've got. We're the 3rd biggest club in England. Yeah, we're the most well supported club in the world, in my opinion. Look at the away support this season. We are the Arsenal. So I don't care how much money anyone else has got. We can do it. We can do it.
See,
we will. Do it.
Charlie makes some great points there. Really does make some great points in that. You nailed the summing up of last season, Charlie, in that we seem to either overachieve or drastically underachieve. There didn't seem to be a consistent middling that spread out. And I put that down to us having a team of young players. They're going to be highs, they're going to be lows. They might even be intimidated. They're professional players at the Arsenal, but they're only kids. So they could even be intimidated at times. And that's going to affect their performance,
Yeah.
As for the fans thing, the fans last season we went up another level, and the last couple of games when they started playing North London Forever took it to a level I'd not seen at Arsenal for many a year. And you're exactly right when you say about the players, mate, because until a couple of seasons ago, I'm not going to name them, but we had players at the club, they'd come on the field, and in a fan's view, they wouldn't give 100%. They'd earn their money. They'd never, ever come across to the fans, the away fans in particular, and clap or appreciate the support. Straight off after the game. And the fans ain't going to support that. No. Us fans are not stupid. We're not stupid, We know when a player is trying and when he's not. It's not about the result. It's about trying, right? And last season, you got the impression that the players, win, lose or draw, wanted to be on the field playing football for the Arsenal.
Yeah.
And after the game, away games in particular, they came across and they thank all the players and thank all the fans and a bond builds. Naturally, a bond builds. Without you getting close to people, it builds. And that's what happened at the end of the season. Now, I hope it continues. You've nailed it, Charlie. You're exactly right, mate.
Yeah. And as Ruth said, we are the Arsenal and we will get back there where we were one day. 100%.
Always a capital T in the always.
Melvin put in the chat earlier on about here we go. Where's the one about put 4-5 past man? Oh, there we go. There's one that Charlie's an iconic picture of Alex James in 4-5 Man City players on the deck. Have a go at that, Charlie, and he'll definitely buy it. There you go. So
I'll have to look at it.
Right. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I hope you've enjoyed it. You've broke your podcast duck as well here.
Yeah.
I hope we made it gentle for you. It didn't hurt too much.
Mate. Well, look, thank you both for the opportunity to have me come on and share my little bit of what I do and why I do it and whatever else. It's been an honour and a pleasure. And again, thank you. And thank you to everybody out there, like I say, that likes, retweets, comments, buys, commissions, whatever. Thank you very much. It's much appreciated.
You're very, very laid back. I tell you that. I do like that.
Good.
Always.
Good man,
Trev.
Charlie. Good man.
Trev.
Good man, Charlie.
We'll leave it there. Should we remove Charlie? Did you want to have a quick 2-minute word, or are you done?
I'm done, mate. I'm done. I'm just just making sure people that Charlie Shanks are on Instagram. For me, that's where you need to go to see the best of Charlie, yeah? And then message him if you're interested in any of his work. There's loads and loads of it on there. Not just football stuff. There's all sorts on there. I got the shock of my life when I saw it, Charlie. You do all sorts, mate. So have a look. Charlie Shanks on Instagram and support the lad. He's a top man, Charlie. Thank you for coming on, mate.
Thank you.
And a good friend of the show on the chat. Jar, I had a great time at Tommy Flynn's. Didn't know half the songs, but this guy was buying no beer, so I had something to do while he was up singing North London Forever and everything else from the audience. Good to see you again, Jar. Guys, thanks very much. If you like what we do, you know what to do. Click the like button if you're on YouTube. Follow us. We do this like what Charlie does. We do it as a hobby. We do it for fun. We're not after fame, fortune, or anything else. But we just enjoy chatting among Arsenal fans about Arsenal things. Next week, if everything plans well, we're looking to bring on North Banksy. And then we've got Sen. And then we'll look at bringing on Ashburton Army. It's a short window with pre-season and stuff starting, but we're going to try and get a few more if we can on later in the season. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I did enjoy myself. Oh God, I got so drunk. Guys, thanks very much. It's an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Up the arse.
You've been listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Follow us on Facebook at Guns and Yellow Ribbons and Twitter at Guns and Ribbons. And remember to rate and review us too.
Run through the storm.